It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Jim and Barb had a dream. They had a dream of home ownership. And in 2005, they felt they were financially ready to have a backyard their kids could play in, a place they could call their own. As I started looking for houses, everybody gave them the same advice. You need to buy a house just a little bit out of your price range, because home values always go up. And you'll always get a cost of living pay increase. So they found a house for about $200,000. They purchased it, and for a couple of years, everything was fine. And then 2007 hit. I think we all know what happened in 2007. Jim, he was a project manager for a construction company, and Barb was a school teacher. And in 2007, Jim lost his job. They could no longer afford to make it on Barb's income alone. They missed 4 mortgage payments, and the mortgage company would no longer accept any partial payments or payments at all. They wanted a lump sum to get everything caught back up, or they did not want anything at all. Their dream had become a nightmare. The bank did not foreclose, the mortgage company did not foreclose, so they were kind of in limbo. Today I'm going to talk about 3 things. I'm going to talk about the iceberg that's out there. I'm going to talk about the opportunity for investors. And third, I'm going to talk about why mortgage companies are having a tough time dealing with this. When I talk about an iceberg, we all know the quote, it's only the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is what's above the water, what you can actually see. That would be the foreclosed homes. That would be the bank-owned properties that are out there. Properties that the mortgage company has went through the foreclosure process and have taken the deed back on. What we don't see is what's underneath the water. This massive amount of ice that's under the water, that is called defaulted mortgages. Mortgages where people have not paid anywhere from 4 months to 4 years. This would be where Barb and Jim fall in. They haven't made a payment in 18 months. Industry leaders, I was at a conference in Vegas last week, and industry leaders tell us that there's a ratio, but for every 1 foreclosed property, there are 10. I'm going to repeat that. There are 10 defaulted mortgages that people have not been paying on. To put a little context in that, if you go to a neighborhood and you have a bank-owned property or a foreclosed property that's on the market, you would assume that there would be 10 people in that neighborhood that are not making the mortgage payments. Pretty stunning. How can investors help? Investors have a lot less regulation than what mortgage companies do. They have a lot more flexibility. They have a scenario to make it a win-win scenario for the homeowner. To give an example of Barb and Jim, an investor might be able to buy their mortgage note from a hedge fund or a bank from anywhere from 40 to 50% of the appraised value of the house. I forgot to mention that through Barb and Jim's troubles, their home value they always thought would rise actually dropped by $50,000 to $150,000. So a hedge fund might sell this to an investor for anywhere from $65,000 to $75,000, where the investor has the option to make it a win-win, where he can forgive payments, forgive back penalties, reduce the payment for the homeowner. The banks, the mortgage companies, have a tough time doing this because of regulation. Another reason why they have problems with this is because they do not have the staffing to handle what's coming down the pipeline for them. Industry standards tell us that, or industry leaders tell us that a mortgage company will will spend $25,000 for a foreclosure, to go through the foreclosure process. Think about that. If you have a home, if you have a neighborhood that has 10 people that are not paying on their mortgages, a mortgage company could spend $25,000 or $250,000 just in foreclosure fees in that neighborhood. It's pretty astounding. Third, remodification of a mortgage company, they have to adhere by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, very stringent guidelines. I myself went through a modification a few years ago, and it took a good 9 months for everything to go through. Plus, we had to send our paperwork in at least a half a dozen times. So in closing today, to talk about the iceberg that's out there, talk about how investors can help, and we talk about why the mortgage companies are having trouble doing that. And I think this is how the investors are how we are going to be able to get out of this housing crisis, by helping homeowners.